Welcome back, I'm the Book Guy, and today we're talking about the award-winning indie trilogy Threadlight by Zach Argyle. Now, I bet many of you are vaguely familiar with this and you're not sure why. Maybe this guy's face looks familiar. Well, Zach is actually part of the BookTube family. He's the husband of the legendary Bookborn. Her channel recently celebrated 100,000 subscribers. So Zach and Bookborn often do Instagram reels together where they guess each other's characters, and they are pretty freaking adorable. And full disclosure, I actually met Zach once during the book launch for Michael R. Miller's Reckoning. And it was funny because Bookborn made a surprise appearance, and I was the only one surprised because apparently everyone else knew about the connection already. So all of that to acknowledge that yes, I do know Zach professionally, but this is still going to be an objective, honest review of his books. He gets no special treatment because my goal is to help you decide if you want to read these books. So Threadlight is a completed trilogy of 3 relatively short books, about 350 to 450 pages long. I got the whole trilogy on a single Audible credit, and the whole thing was 34 hours long, so pretty short for a trilogy. Threadlight has a huge emphasis on magic system, with cool abilities, new discoveries, and revealing ancient secrets. And I've seen a few reviewers call this Sanderson-lite, and you know what? That's an absolutely bullseye description. It's perfect. If you like Brandon Sanderson, you'll find a lot to love here. I sure did. We have 3 protagonists from 3 different countries, each with their own relationship to magic. And we have several mystery plot lines that build up to big revelations. It's lots of good stuff. Although the series is not perfect, this is essentially a really big fantasy concept that's told in 3 short books. So I thought there were a few places where the story felt rushed or stretched too thin, and I'll highlight those as we go and how it fit the shorter format. So let's go deeper. This is a spoiler-free review looking at strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully we will convince more readers to try out this underrated indie series. Let's begin. Chris Valerian was once a great war hero known as the Apogee. He saved Alkea from the Wastelanders, but no one knows the great cost that Chris paid to do it, and the darkness he still holds inside, waiting to burst free again. Laurel is an orphan girl in the forest realm of Zedalum. She lost her parents to wolves at a young age. At least, that's what she was told. But when Laurel starts working with wolves as a young adult, she finds that they are not the monsters she was led to believe. There's something about them that the elders don't want her to know. And Alvarax is the son of a thief. He spent his entire life embarrassed by his criminal father and using his magic to help people to earn back some redemption. Yet there may be more to Alvarax and his magic than we first thought. He grows slightly suspicious when he dies, and then comes back a day later.
Huh?
All 3 of our protagonists have their lives shaken up when the wounds of old wars are reopened again into fresh conflict, and dark mysteries from the past return. The Threadlight War is about to begin. Okay, this is a really, really cool thing. You ready for this? Okay, there are 5 countries in this continent, and they are all culturally different. This never happens, and I just love to see it. For example, I just reviewed The Banished Lands by John Gwynne, and there are 7 kingdoms that all have the same culture and forms of government. It's alright, but here is the continent of Erasin. The story starts in Alkea, which is based off the Holy Roman Empire. All of the names are Latin-based, there is a church who worships the heralds and prays for their return, and they are very technologically developed. Then up in Zedalum, we have the forest people who live in balance with nature, and they're ruled by their elders, and they have more simplistic lives. And then Cynoshore in the south is a much more lawless criminal empire. I kept picturing Tortuga from the Pirates of the Caribbean films. So these guys are seafaring people who are ruled by an empress who has very limited actual power. Then of course Felia is very West Asia inspired, and the Wastelanders are considered to be wild savages but end up being more than we expect. So there's lots going on across all 5 places. They all have different naming conventions, different cultural norms and forms of government and approaches to magic and technology. In some countries, the magicians are soldiers workers and working class people. Elsewhere, they're like royalty. Just have to say, I loved this so much.
Calm down.
My only complaint is that because these books are so short, we didn't explore this world quite as much as I would have personally liked. Threadlight left me wanting more, but in a really good way. I would happily read a sequel trilogy in this world that went deeper. Just saying. There was also an impressive amount of history. This fantasy world didn't just appear fully formed in Chapter 1. There was recently a great war between Alkea and the Wastelanders, but that was just the latest conflict after 1,000 years of violent history between them. The Alkeans have their beautiful church and noble faith in the heralds, while the dirty Wastelanders worship their savage gods who revel in violence and death. At least, that's according to the Alkeans. Again, there's just plenty of layers to explore in Arisen, but the real focus is the magic. The Threadlight series is named after the Threadlight magic system. Now, I'm only going to give you some hints about the magic because half the fun of this series was just seeing the concept explored, and I don't want to give too much away. So some people in this world can see different threads of light, and then summon it to do certain things. The light fills their eyes and their veins, and their whole body glows. That said, the magic can be a bit like a drug, and using too much of it can make you dependent. Now, the standard thread weavers are the sapphires and the emeralds, and they can push and pull, respectively. Push an enemy away or pull a weapon into their hands. And yes, it is very similar to Mistborn's allomancy, but also a little similar to Lightbringer's chromaturgies, using light for magic. I think some people will initially not like that it's similar to other hard magic systems, but stick with it. It gets more unique as it goes. Because no sooner have we established sapphires and emeralds, do we realize that there are new colors that the people of Alkea weren't even aware of properly. We soon meet someone who can see obsidian threadlight, and the rarest of all is amber. And if that wasn't enough, it seems threadlight is not the only type of magic out there. And that's all I'll say about it, because there are just so many new discoveries and revelations in all 3 books. It's very cool, a major highlight of the whole series, and it just keeps getting bigger and cooler and more epic. There is one drawback to this. Now, I think the series has only 2 weaknesses, and this is one of them, that the series is continually introducing new magical things. Now, that might sound really cool, just hear me out. There's a Sanderson law of magic about this. Expand what you already have before you add something new. And Threadlight is constantly adding new things. So we establish the push-pull of sapphire and emeralds. That's a hard rule. Then we immediately see an exception to that rule. So it's like the rule didn't really have consequences. And this happens a few times. And I thought a few of the concepts weren't explored very well before we're moving on to the next one. So overall, I do think the magic system here is marvelous, and I love that it had so many cool ideas, but it lost some of that feeling of being grounded in realism. After all, hard magic systems should feel a bit like science, and yes, science is constantly evolving as we discover new things, so there should be some progress, but we're not constantly revising entire branches of science, are we? Okay, maybe that wasn't the best example. I should also admit that I am very much in the minority here. I do check out other reviews of the series I review, and I can confirm that just about everyone else had nothing but love for the magic system, so no one else is complaining, just me. So I think most of you will probably love the magic and love the way that it's constantly evolving to incredible heights, and some sticklers like me will want it to be a bit more grounded. But the thing that really grounds the story, segue, is the characters. So we have 3 protagonists in this series, Chris, Laurel, and Alvarax, and I liked all of them, and I'm excited to tell you why. So Chris Valerian is married to Iriel, and they have their first child on their way. Now Chris just absolutely adores his wife and family, and my god, I just love to see it. I know I shouldn't read into this too much, but I just love the fact that Zach has written a realistic husband who loves his wife so much. That just makes me very happy. But anyway, so Chris has a dark side. In the war, he was called the Apogee, which is an old word that means zenith or peak, meaning that he was the most powerful thread weaver in the whole army. But no one knows that the Apogee is now inside Chris, like a dark alter ego who wants to break free and wreak violence and death on anyone who even slightly pisses him off.
I get it.
Chris is now an honored war hero and a sort of detective for Alkea. care. He lives the perfect life. He is the golden boy, and he's barely keeping it together. And I just genuinely loved Chris's sincerity and the tension between his conflicting sides. It was very believable and compelling. I also like that Chris had a romance storyline that wasn't about the initial phase of falling in love. You know how when people think romance story, they usually think about meeting each other and going on first dates, etc. But this was a story about the romance of a relationship. And I think that's an underutilized aspect of romance in general. Chris and Ariel go through some big ups and downs in their life and in their marriage, and I was heavily invested in their journey. The second protagonist is Laurel, one of the Zedalim. So she's like a 17-year-old girl, headstrong and adventurous, and she definitely has the recklessness of youth. And yet, Laurel is also quite sheltered. Her elders claim that her parents were killed by Zedalim wolves, yet the wolves are also big fluffy boys who are fiercely protective of their tribe. Now Laurel is beginning to mistrust the authority that holds her back. And yes, Laurel has a big wolf companion, and he's the best boy. I do think Laurel is slightly more tropey than the other characters in that she has the young person coming of age story arc, and yet it is very well executed here. She is a fan favorite for good reason. She's the rebel, and we all love a rebel.
I rebel.
And the third protagonist is Alvarax, and I'm not gonna lie, this guy was my favorite. And by a big margin too. Alvarax is trying to earn redemption and prove that he is not his father. Yet this guy has the unfortunate tendency to make small mistakes that accidentally hurt others and kind of prove that maybe he is like his father. He is a man desperate to prove himself, but everyone can't wait to see him screw up. Alvarax is charming and likable and very funny, but also has a very low opinion of himself too. His struggle was the most compelling. Now this is all great character writing and good stuff, but I do want to highlight what I feel is the second weakness in this series, and that's how the characters are handled in the first book. Uniquely, the first book. You see, in Voice of War, we get introduced to Chris and Laurel, and the book goes back and forth between them in a nice balance of chapters. But about halfway through, we get introduced to Alvarax, and then another protagonist, Willow.
Huh?
So Willow is Chris's mother, and she's a point of view character for the first book. And so going from 2 protagonists up to 4 protagonists in a book that's only 350 pages, it's stretching it a bit too thin.
Butter scraped over too much bread.
Now, by book 2, Willow gets pulled back into a supporting character role, and the 3 protagonists actually get the space they need to shine in the story, and it's a much better balance. But even so, as much as I love Alvarax, I still think he should have been reserved as well and introduced in the second book, making it a cleaner introduction. Because I love short books, okay? We need to celebrate short books, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they are genuinely hard to write, because you've got to cut back a lot of excess ideas and just focus on the core storyline. Introducing a protagonist halfway through a book is an odd choice for a short book. That said, in books 2 and 3, the characterization was literally perfection.
Perfect. Everything.
All the characters had an arc, they had development, and big crossroads moments in their life. And they all got the time and space to explore who they truly were. So a little bit of a rocky start, but overall very well done. These 3 books have so much plot, and they are fast-paced and just keep powering forward at an incredible rate. I cannot praise the plot enough.
Oh, those are new ones.
Yes! Yes!
So first, we have several mystery plot lines in quite a few forms. Chris the detective starts out looking into a missing persons case. He's starting to notice, though, that there are a few of these going around lately, and all of them are thread weavers. Is this some sort of covert op? And for what reason? And this is a major theme across all 3 books. New mysteries are constantly popping up. But here's the best part. They actually lead to shocking revelations. Slight tangent here, but you know how these days much of Hollywood is obsessed with the goddamn mystery box? You know, you write a story with the mystery without any plan of what's hidden inside, and then you get all these big hyped up mysteries these days that are nothing but empty promises.
Apparently that's a trigger for me.
Well, not today. Threadlight has several big reveals. In fact, I'm genuinely pissed that I didn't see any of them coming because they were so well foreshadowed and perfectly executed. So it's not just a good mystery in the series, it's a great payoff too. The second type of plotline is magical experiments. So there's a few different people, both heroes and villains, who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible, magically speaking. Think of it like a magical arms race. Now, I loved these plotlines too, because they made the magic system relevant to the story. You know how there are some books where it's like, oh, now we have a magic chapter. Oh, now we have an actual plot chapter. Well, no, these were fully integrated. There were wider political consequences for every magical discovery. So it raised the stakes. It was very well done. And third is the mysteries of the past. Yes, that's different to the regular mysteries. So each of our three protagonists has a backstory that is slowly explored. And more than that, the history of these countries and their wars is explored as well, until big truths are revealed. And once again, these weren't empty promises either. The past was relevant to the present. So it didn't just reveal some ancient history as a cool little novelty. No, it changed everything. So honestly, I have only positive things to say about the plot here. Although there is one last major thing I want to address. The Threadlight series are all short books, and these days I'm finding more and more often that people judge short books incredibly harshly. And I don't know why exactly, I have my theories, but generally speaking, fantasy books that are around 400 pages tend to get a high number of haters, and I think it's completely undeserved. The fact is, we need more fantasy books exactly like this. Accessible, but still smart and interesting, because shorter doesn't mean dumber. Threadlight proves that a book can be ideal for new fantasy readers and easy to get into while still giving us serious world building and hard magic. But writing a short book is also really difficult. It is an art form that I think many experienced authors forget. God knows a few big names should practice getting to the point more often. A short book has to limit their ideas and focus on just a few key story threads, make every page count. And I think Threadlight really mastered the shorter novel format. I will admit, I did think the first book struggled in a few places with that awkward number of protagonists I mentioned earlier, but I think the second two books really nailed that art form and just kept getting better and better. The books are fast-paced while still taking the time in the right places to develop character and magic. So this series does exactly what it's supposed to do, and I don't think many people realize just how much skill that requires. So I was really impressed by how well Zach writes women. And I'll just acknowledge, I'm aware of the absurdity of one man complimenting another man on how he writes women, and is a little bit like,
yes, Jerry Smith!
But there were quite a few women in this series, in many different roles, with genuinely different personalities too. I liked Laurel and Willow as the two lead, but even Chris's wife Ariel is very well written, and her depictions of motherhood rang very true. And later there's a love interest for Elvirax as well, and there's a few villains who are women too, so they all had important parts to play in the story, and I just liked how balanced this felt. I also really enjoyed the depictions of race and culture, so we see the centuries of prejudice between Alkea and the Wastelanders. I especially liked that there is a big contrast between what's considered a civilized culture and a primitive culture, but then also exploring the innate biases in that belief and the difference between the propaganda and the reality. Also, many of our characters come from different countries and show an initial suspicion upon meeting each other. This played out really nicely, showing tension that they had to learn to overcome. And this is just a natural result of good world building that has cultural distinctions between the peoples. They must learn to get along or fall victim to hatred and mistrust. That said, there's no clear LGBT in the series, although there is some disability rep in several characters who have been religiously blinded, literally, who find ways to live with their condition. As for the content warning, there's another reason why this is considered like Sanderson. There's hardly any content warning. Mostly just action violence with no heavy gore, no swearing, no sex or smut. However, there are a few scary scenes. Like at the start of the second book, there's a scene where a group of soldiers have to fight to the death with their bare hands. It is quite savage, but you don't see any gore. It's more psychologically dark. So I still think squeamish readers would be pretty okay with this one. Is the ending worth it? Yeah. Threadlight has a fantastic ending. It really stuck with me. I cannot believe how epic it became by the end of it. All the plot threads came together in a big crescendo, which is very impressive considering his 3 short books. Zach absolutely stuck the landing on this one, no doubt about it. And how much should you try? So this is a slightly trickier question today. I think the first book is overall a very solid book. It did win an indie finalist award, and I think that's well deserved. But I also thought it struggled with too many protagonists and the magic system that changed a bit too quickly. However, book 2 is fantastic, and book 3 only improves. So my recommendation today is if you're going to try this series, you got to read past the first book to really see just how good the series gets. So give it a fair go, and I think you'll love it. Good luck! And happy reading. Before you go, I want to remind you that I have a new book coming out this month. A Broken Bloodline is the 4th book in my Immortal Investigation series, an urban fantasy with a bit of crime, romance, and horror. It would really help me out if you gave the series a try and showed some support for the launch. If you want to help the channel, make sure you subscribe for more very thorough book reviews just like this one. Boost the video with a comment or a hype if you feel so inclined. You can also check out my online shop and my Patreon for more ways to show your thanks. I'll see you next time, and I hope you enjoy a good book today. Bye!